Are you choosing to stand still, afraid to take action because you don't believe you have all the answers? Or are you willing to begin your journey and let your first step inform your next step? Today's topic, 3 reasons why faith is a deliberate practice. Welcome to the Influencer Journey Show. My name is Suzanne Hart, and my partner in crime, Taria, is not going to be with me today. I have a very, very special guest. On the show, the big question that we ask is, how does the average entrepreneur like us, who started with limited time, zero marketing budget, and little or no online presence, get their authentic message into the marketplace and become a person of influence? We also want to know, what skills must we learn? And most importantly, who are we required to become to magnetically attract our divine clients and build a loyal following? So hello, everyone. Welcome. I am super excited for this conversation. And I want to just give you a little bit of backdrop as to what you want to think about and why this conversation is not only cool, but important. So I want to take you back to, oh my goodness, 2005. And my life was not what I wanted to be. Have you ever had that moment where you think, this can't be my life? Well, I had gone to my doctors and I was not doing well. For me to give you a quick summary, I was physically exhausted, financially upside down, and totally suffering in silence. And I'd been going back and forth to the doctor to find out what was wrong with me. And my doctor looked me straight in the face and he said, Suzanne, you're healthy, hon, but you're not well. And he told me that I needed to change how I was doing life. He told me that the stress of all that I was doing was taking a toll on my health. And silently, I knew exactly what he was saying as I began to cry uncontrollably. You see, at that point in my life, I wanted to control everything. How many of you out there want to be in control, in charge, and controlling the things that you have no right to think you can control? That was me. Tired, exhausted, frustrated, and so wanting things to change. So I went home and I took stock of my life. And a few months later, I decided I was going to quit my job. I was going to get a divorce and I was going to leave town. I know, crazy all at once. And what happened was, as I left town, I got this little apartment in the area where I live today. And as I laid on the floor in my new space, I had a panic. Oh my gosh, what did I do? What am I thinking? Starting all over, all those things. And of course, I felt out of control. And in that moment, I needed to hang on to something. So what do? You call your mother. I called my mom. And my mother, I said, Mom, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've done this. I've quit my job. I've moved across out of the city. I don't know what I've done. And my mother said the most amazing words. She said, Suzanne, when have you committed to something that you truly wanted and failed? It was a sobering moment because she was reminding me to believe in the possibility of success. She was reminding me to believe in myself. She was reminding me to have faith. So what we're going to dive into is this whole conversation about faith. How do you find it? How do you have it? And how do you ensure that you claim it in those moments when everything seems uncertain? When you want to control, but there's nothing to control. So for this particular conversation, I had to go looking for a perfect person to have this conversation with. And I know you all can see the gentleman sitting beside me. I want to tell you a little about this man before we dive into a conversation. So the person I have the pleasure to introduce is a pastor, a multimedia storyteller, and entrepreneur. He's the pastor of a church in Athens, Georgia. And for 3 decades, this man has been immersed in leadership, first as an officer in the United States Army, and then as a senior leader for some of the best companies in the world. How many of you have heard of Sara Lee Corporation? Senior level. Fiskars Fiskars Brands and Advanced Micro Devices. So this gentleman is experienced in business and in this conversation called faith that we're going to be talking about. Now, what I'm curious about is, how did he go from business to pastor? We're going to ask him that question. Currently, he's the founder of 2 Point Theological Media Corporation, and he embraces the thought of media to teach the gospel. So he's looking at podcasting, he's looking at video, he's looking at print. So that expands our reach across borders. So I'm going to give him an opportunity to share a little bit more about himself. But please help me welcome to this conversation, Pastor Marben Bland.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you so much for having me. This is just an honor, and I know this is an extension of some of the great conversations that you and I've had over the years, and it's a pleasure to share them with other people.
As we were saying earlier, you get on the phone and you have these beautiful conversations with someone, but we've never met face to face.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in many ways, I feel like I know you because we've had such great conversations.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I just wanted to ask you to do was just take a moment and tell the audience a little bit about yourself. And can you answer the question how a businessman becomes a pastor?
Okay, well, I'm still wondering about that myself. But let me kind of tell you the Reader's Digest version of the story. As you said, I was really fortunate that after I got out of the Army, I started working for a lot of great corporations and very quickly rose the ladder and got into senior leadership positions. And in those senior leadership positions, I saw more and more that my moral compass was swaying a bit, and that I was not doing things that were pleasing to me, but pleasing to the bank account. And one day I was taking my son to some sort of a tutoring session, and there were a bunch of people having Bible study. This was when I lived in Pittsburgh, and I walked in and I said, "Well, what are you guys doing?" They said, "Well, we're having Bible study." And the next thing I know, I joined them, and I joined them week after week after week after week after week. And then about a year later, and I didn't go to their church, they asked me to start leading the Bible study. And I said, "What, wow, me?" And so I started leading that Bible study. And the next thing I knew, I was leading Bible studies at work. I was leading Bible studies in homeless shelters. I was leading Bible studies all over the place. And they call it the call. They call it this yearning, kind of like what you were talking about when you decided to change your lifestyle, that there must be something more. And that call just led me that quit your job, quit your corporate job, go to seminary. Wow. And I did that. And as your mom said, the Lord probably told me also that, hey, there's nothing that you have done that you haven't succeeded, and now you're doing it for me. And everything has worked out with that.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So we're going to talk about, it's interesting, such a great way to tee up this conversation, because both of us are describing circumstances and situations where we take a leap of faith and we're trusting something, a calling, a pull inside of us, and don't know how it's going to end up, don't feel in control, really. However, we step into faith. And so I really want to talk about this thing called faith, because I think that we talk about it a lot. We hear about it a lot. The question is, what is it, and how do you know you're in it? And how do you know you're out of it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I am so excited for this conversation. So, for those of us who are just joining us, welcome to the Influencers Journey Show. I want to ask you is as you jump on, please let us know who you are, where you're joining us from, what you do while you're living, and who do you serve? Who are the people that you are meant to touch? As you do so, also put in the comment section, what was it about this conversation that had you stop, had you say, I need to listen, I need to participate? Comment throughout, ask questions, light up the conversation, be part of the conversation. If you're listening to the replay, hashtag replay and do the same thing. Act like you're listening to it live, get into the conversation, comment, let us know who you are, where you're joining us from, who you serve, and what you do while you're living. And again, light up the comments. We will go back. We will look at your comments. We will answer them. So we definitely want to hear from you. This is our virtual networking opportunity, our virtual opportunity for you guys to talk to each other and also to be engaged with us. We want to hear from you. If this is your first time joining us, please subscribe and like our YouTube channel. And do us a favor, when you love what you hear, and I know that you will because this is a special guest, definitely share it with a friend. Let them know, man, you got to hear this conversation. It may impact or change a life. I know for me that one of the things is when I learn something that moves me, it's one thing. But when I share it with a friend and I have that conversation, it becomes a whole other situation. So are you guys ready to get this party started? Are you ready to get this party started, Pastor Marben?
I am ready. I'm ready, Suzanne.
All right. So welcome back to the Influencers Journey Show. My name is Suzanne Hart. I am sitting down with Pastor Marben Bland. And our conversation, our topic today is 3 reasons why faith is a deliberate practice. So I want to dive in and I want to ask you this question. How do you know when you are no longer in faith? Like, how does someone actually know that? How do you identify it?
I think you can identify it when your actions are not aligned with your values. And we all have innately values that we believe in. Again, I said when I was in corporate America, I truly enjoyed the perks. I enjoyed flying on the corporate jet. I enjoyed the box seats at the opera and the private box at the ball games. I enjoyed all of those things, and also I enjoyed the money. but I did but I did not enjoy all of the things I had to do to make that happen.
Yeah.
And how it tugged at my moral fiber and compass. As you know, we spent a lot of time away from our families, and I was a single parent raising a young son, which meant I had to spend a ton of time away from him. And that was not congruent with my values. There were times in which ethically we did some things that were not really congruent with my values of being straightforward and honest. And then finally, what was not congruent with my values was the fact that that many talented people who were at lower rungs of the organization didn't have the opportunity to enjoy the perks and the things that I got to enjoy because of their job status, and they did the work that made all of this stuff possible. So you have this gut feeling when you're out of sync with your values, and you know it. You may not be able to articulate it as I just did, and I couldn't do it at the time, but you absolutely positively know, and that's when you're out of faith.
That is so clear. In mindset, I have this term called your GPS, right? It's your inner compass, your inner guidance. And one of the things I realize is most of us can feel it, but we haven't spent the time taking time to write them down. So if you have worked with me, you're going to have your list of 8 things that create your compass, your GPS. And it's so cool that you said that, because I tell people whenever I am off and I don't exactly know what
Mhm.
it is,
Mhm.
I pull out my list of my
Mhm.
GPS, and I can always tell, ooh, I'm out of integrity around communication. I'm out of integrity because I'm doing something that's not in alignment with one of these values. I can always spot it. And I love what you're saying, because I know that the reason I'm behaving that way is because I'm not believing,
Mhm.
right? So I'm trying to control an outcome. I'm trying to fix something, or I can't trust where I'm going. So I want to make it mold and bend to my liking. And we all
Mhm.
know it, sometimes who wants to surrender to the unknown?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I know for myself, one of my big clues when I am not in faith is I become controlling,
Mhm.
right? What is it for you?
I think it's similar. I will admit I am a control freak. I like to I like to make sure that things are done and done in a certain way. And so I think we've got to be really careful about defining what control is versus what is making sure of uh, being aligned with quality and a standard. And
Yeah.
uh, so the Bible tells us that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And so in this way in which we can be this controlling person is that we set a course and we decide upon that course. And we certainly imbued that course with quality and standards, but we become controlling when we try to fix things that are outside of our course,
Yeah.
fix people, fix processes that are outside of our course. I was chatting the other day with a young lady who is a political candidate, and she was really upset about something that the other political candidate opposite her in the race was doing. And in our conversation, I just kind of said, you got to control what you can control, and what you can't control is the other candidate. Run your race. And so I think we have to kind of trust the process,
Mm-hmm.
trust the what we're doing, but also still be smart enough to put quality in it. And so when we know that we're veering off course, something needs to be corrected, we can do it, but we're not trying to control it.
I love it. I want to highlight for all the perfectionists that's listening,
Yes.
that is a form of control, right? It needs to happen a certain way, and we think that we're trying to make things neat and be prepared and all that stuff. And I know I've learned from firsthand experience. There's that line when I cross into perfection, that I'm actually trying to control things that, as you said, are none of my business, really. I think the
Mm-hmm.
other thing
Mm-hmm.
I want to highlight is for those of you listening that are procrastinators,
Mm-hmm.
right? Procrastination and perfection is where fear and shame hide out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so part of it is, as we're procrastinating, saying we're getting ready to get ready, we're getting ready to get it right, we're getting ready to get whatever, um we're not in faith.
No, we're not. We're not. Suzanne, let me tell you something. One of the things that people tell me all the time, I'm learning as a pastor. Well, God hasn't told me to do this thing yet. And my
Mm,
retort to that is, you're living, aren't you? So God has already told you, go ahead and do it. You're just kind of procrastinating, or you may not really want to do it. And you're using God, or you're using I'm not ready as an excuse for something that you really, at the end of the day, you really don't want to do.
you know
But
I,
you just, yeah,
yeah,
go
I,
ahead.
I love that you said that, because one of my biggest learns, Marben, was when an idea drops into me, right? And I don't know about anybody else, ideas drop into me when I'm walking, when I'm
Mm-hmm.
showering,
Mm-hmm.
when I'm cooking, when my mind is
Mm-hmm.
just doing that free association. So
Mm-hmm.
ideas drop into me. And in the past, the ideas would scare me. We
Mm-hmm.
all know we all know what those ideas are like. So it would
Oh,
drop
absolutely.
and I'd be like, oh my gosh. And then when it scared me, I would look for evidence. I would look for support. I'd go commiserate with people who I have no business talking to about my idea. I would be doing all those things, right? And then I'd end up putting it on the shelf. I would just talk myself out of it, and I would say,
Mm-hmm.
I'm waiting for a sign. I'm waiting for this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm waiting for that. What I realized is that if the idea was dropped into me, it was for me. I don't have to
Mm-hmm.
wait for anything else.
Right.
Because I know, because how I know is the idea keeps coming back. It's like I'm being haunted
Right.
by the idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
chasing me down. It's like, this is for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
running, and I'm running from it. And it is when I am afraid that I go, oh, this is real. I'm supposed to do this.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah. I think
realize
you're
that my
absolutely
fear is the sign that this is bigger than me, but it's not that I can't do it. It's just that it's bigger
right.
than me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And we should not let the perfect get in the way of the good.
Oh,
I am very much okay.
say that again.
Again, we should not let the perfect get in the way of the good. The idea that dropped into us, the scenario that we have now created, many times will not turn out exactly the way that we said it thought it would turn out. But along the way, the permutations make it even better.
Mm,
And and it's okay because throughout the course of things that we do, we're going to fail, and then we can get back up and do it again. The Bible is full of stories of people who have failed but then succeeded.
absolutely. Absolutely. So I want to ask you a question about this whole concept of faith. And I know there's people probably listening and they may say, well, religion isn't my thing,
Mm-hmm,
not my
mm-hmm.
jam. And can you talk a little bit about that? Because I really want the listening of everybody is to understand that faith is faith.
Mm-hmm.
So can you just expound on that a little bit?
Sure, sure. Uh, so I agree. I don't really believe in religion. I believe in faith.
Ooh.
Um, and we can practice our faith in so many different ways. Uh, I'm not a big quote of scripture, but there's one piece of scripture that a lot of people know, which is the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He restores my soul. He leadeth me in a path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. My rod, thy staff, that comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemy. You anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Mhm.
A lot of people know that piece of scripture. And so if you break it down in terms of a faith piece, let me kind of do this in three ways. One, we all need a shepherd in our lives. One of the things I'm excited about the work that you do, Suzanne, you shepherd people.
Thank you.
You give them a sense of where they can go and what they can be. And by being that shepherd in their lives, it allows them to be a shepherd themselves.
Yeah.
So we all need to be a shepherd, and we all need to shepherd somebody else. And even though we may not think we are someone else's shepherd, we are. There are people who look up for us. Their children, their spouses, the folks in our business. We need a shepherd, and we need someone to shepherd our lives. And that's part of faith. And then the second thing that I kind of draw from that scripture is we need green pastures
Oh my, talk. That is good.
I don't need you in the congregation. We need green pastures and restorative waters that help us focus, to be productive, to be loving, and to have fun.
Mm.
I love the fact, and and guys, Suzanne is such a good shepherd because she believes in green restorative pastures. She loves water, and she believes in having that time in which you completely unplug from what you're doing.
Yeah.
Taking a walk, cooking, in the shower, in some exotic place. That helps us regenerate and refocus and refresh. Now, we may not all be able to afford that type of lifestyle, but we can certainly afford a walk. And we can certainly put regenerative things into what we do. And that is a deliberate spiritual practice.
Mm.
And then the third thing, and this is kind of a mindset, is that we got to realize that goodness and mercy will follow us all the days of our life, regardless of the dark valleys of death that we tread. 3 months ago, I was in Israel, and I have many friends, both Israelis and Palestinians. And Israel, as you know, it's a small country.
Mm-hmm.
And with this terrible act that happened with Hamas, which I absolutely condemn, it had an effect on everyone. And when I have when I'm having conversations, I've had conversations over the last 6 days or so with both my Palestinian and Israeli friends. Despite the hardship, despite some of the death that has occurred in their own families, they know that goodness and mercy still follows them.
Mm.
And even though they are experiencing the dark days of death. And that's a mindset. And these three things, being a shepherd and being able to shepherd people, green pastures, and realizing that there'll be dark days, but we're going to get through them. That's faith.
Thank you. That's wonderful. And as you were sharing, what kept coming to mind to me is, as I teach mindset, one of the premises is we are here for more. Mm-hmm. We are here to be more, do more, and have more. And that requires a constant state of growth. And when you were talking about the green pastures and the unplugging and all those things, it's those times where we get to heal, we get to think, and we get to come back ready for more. And also, as you talk about shepherding, one of the beautiful things about being a shepherd and being shepherd is, mm-hmm. I am shepherded by people who inspire me to be more. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then I test my inspiration by shepherding other people and saying, hey, I have a vision. Mm-hmm. We're going here. Mm-hmm. Who wants to walk with me? And as an entrepreneur, I truly understand that we walk by faith. Like, I have an idea, I put it into world, I create, and I trust mm-hmm. that it's going to resonate with somebody. Mm-hmm. And so it is, and I think it is the act of wanting to serve, mm-hmm. wanting to be more, mm-hmm. Wanting to be of contribution, mm-hmm. add value. All those things ignite that. You can't do it without a certain level of faith.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you said something. Let's go back to the green pastures for a minute. What happens in the pasture? What happens with the grass? It's growing. Mm-hmm. Everything in the pasture is growing. Yeah. And so when you put yourself in a green pasture, you're putting yourself not in a mode of total rest and relaxation, which is part of it. You're putting yourself in a growth mode.
You know, and one of the things I know, as I love being out in nature, and I go, you know, we are all here to grow.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
you see the plants, the flowers, they're not preoccupied with all the stuff we are. They're like, oh, we here to grow
Yeah.
and grow. And I always say, imagine if the tree decided, oh, I'm going to retire.
Hmm.
I'm done growing. Well, we know it's going to die, but we don't make that leap with ourselves. So part of it for me is the minute I stepping out on faith and trusting the process that pushes me to be more,
Hmm.
I am not standing still.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am slowly de disintegrating, if you will. I'm slowly moving backwards. I'm slowly being less than, because time is always moving. So for me, a big part of faith is the demand of my growth.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
let me ask you this. You know, one of the things that people are say is I have faith. And they say it like faith is a noun.
Mm.
And one of the things I came to the realization, I was writing a talk for an event a few years ago, and I started saying I am faithing,
Hmm.
as in faith is a verb.
Faith is the verb. Yeah.
And and it was the act of being in faith.
Hmm.
And so I rarely say I have faith anymore, because it's kind of like it's something I grasp.
Hmm.
Whereas to be in it,
Hmm.
it's a
Hmm.
different thing. So why does life change when we see faith as a verb rather than a noun?
So there's a piece of scripture that says, if you have the faith of the size of a mustard seed,
Hmm.
and this is all about faith being a verb. I'm old, so there's this old tagline for a hair product called Brill Cream, and it said, "A little dab will do you,"
Mm-hmm.
or Maxwell House coffee, good to the last drop.
Right.
Faith, it doesn't require a lot of it.
Well, that will do you.
Yeah, a little dab will do you, because what happens with faith is, once it's like a snowball going downhill. Once you start it, it just goes and goes and goes. And what happens is, many times with that idea, that business, that thing that you're doing, other people will see the goodness of that and will latch on and give your faith that growth.
I think I really want to highlight this because they say faith without work is dead.
Hmm.
And I think oftentimes, particularly as people follow certain philosophies, is that people are like, okay, so I have faith. I'm waiting, as you said. I'm
Yeah.
waiting. I'm waiting for guidance. And one of the things, with all my clients, I say you ask with expectation,
Hmm.
and you act as a demonstration of faith.
Hmm.
And so, you know, faith is not a standstill kind of
No,
action.
it is not. Mm-mm.
It is a doing
Hmm.
and a becoming. And so, you know, we've got to step out and trust that the stepping out will activate something that will lead us.
Hmm.
It's not standing still, right?
No, no, no. You got to do the work. You have to do the work. Faith requires work, and the work is done by human beings. It's not done by God.
Oh,
Now that may sound like a controversial statement. Okay,
I was going to say, you please elaborate, because I know people, some people
people say, "Oh, who is he?"
go,
So, if you know, for those of you who examine the Bible, all the stuff that happens in the Bible, other than creation, God is doing it through people.
mm,
he didn't just plant Jesus on the earth. Jesus was born from what? The Virgin Mary. So a person had to do something. God makes things happen through people. Therefore, we have to do work. Suzanne, you talked about, if I could, before we went on the air, you've got some workers in your house who are working on your deck. Now, you had the idea, right? That I want to do something on my deck. So you had this idea, and so how did this faith idea happen? Well, one, you had to make the money to do it, and then two, you actually had to have the carpenters, the expertise, the people to actually do the work. Now, you did work to make the money, and the vision of this faith idea, but someone else also had to do the actual work as well. We have to work.
You know, it's so clear when you put it like that, and you know, here we are, we're on camera. You're in one in the state, and I'm in a whole other country. And I remind myself, and I want to remind everybody that was an idea in someone's mind, and they had to act on faith to make that idea a reality. That's the same for the chair, the house, the car, all these things. It was someone having the idea and taking action and engaging and enrolling people in the possibility.
Yeah, exactly. And the possibility can happen at any age. During the pandemic, what we find, 80, 90-year-old people who have no expertise with technology. Well, guess what? They get on Zoom. They're doing Zoom calls with grandkids. They're doing Bible studies on Zoom. They're doing meetings. And now it's just like, okay, great, meet me on Zoom. So the work is, we are still available for the work. We can still do the work at whatever stage of life that we're in. We can do the work.
And you know, it is interesting, because I think oftentimes when people think I must have faith, they think of big faith, like it's like humongous. There's something massive happening, and that requires faith. And I think what you're reminding of us is you know, when why I say, how do you know you're in faith, and that it is a noun, because it is moment to moment, step by step throughout the day. There's and sometimes we don't realize it because they're easy leaps of faith, if you will. And then you have the bigger ones. However, I have learned that if I don't take the smaller ones, the bigger ones are impossible.
Absolutely. And the most difficult piece of faith is sometimes, like you were saying, just getting started. I love it when you said that you tell people the idea. I do this. When I have an idea, I tell it to people. Because I need that feedback. And the more I hear the feedback, positive or negative, it gives me an opportunity to be more faithful to that idea and to germinate it. I tell people because I need a shepherd. I need people to help me shepherd the idea. I tell people because it's the green pasture that helps germinate the idea and make it even better.
And I think,
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think what's really neat about that is that, you know, for me, I had to grow into understanding that when I share my idea, I'm not sharing for approval of it. I'm sharing for expansion of it. Right. And as you said, feedback, good, bad, it's how I receive it that will make the difference. So I've learned to receive everything as information that I get to pick apart and learn from, and build my idea. When I was younger, I would go to people for permission.
Yeah.
Right. And I'd rarely ever get the answer I wanted, because they could not see what I saw, because their idea wasn't for them. I always say God didn't give it to them,
They
they
gave,
gave it to
gave it
me.
to you.
And
Yeah.
so don't expect that someone else can see what was mine.
Right, right. And that your idea is far bigger than what people can imagine. If you let me, there's a story from the movie Toy Story, the very first movie Toy Story. And at the end of the movie Toy Story, you've got Andy and Buzz Lightyear, who are strapped on this rocket, and they're trying to get back in the truck where all the toys are, because Andy is moving to a new house. And Buzz Lightyear is steering the rocket past the truck where all the toys are. And Andy says, "Hey, you missed the truck." He says, "I wasn't aiming for the truck. I was aiming for Andy's car, where Andy is the guy that we are aligned with, our shepherd."
Mm,
So our ideas, when we share them, you're right, they may not be as big as people may think that they may be thinking. Or also, our idea may be smaller, and that in that green pasture, when we tell someone, you're right, it gets bigger because they see things that you didn't see and can add to it. So I love that. We're not asking for permission. What we're doing is trying to grow and validate our idea even more.
I love it.
And that's part of faith.
It is. It is. So I like to describe faith as a muscle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to say much more about that. But I know that, I work out on the regular, and I believe that if I don't use it, I will lose it.
Yes, yes.
So talk a little bit about why faith could be a muscle.
Well, I think you just said it. It. There are tons of people who operate without faith.
Oof.
And by operating without faith, then when it's needed, and it's needed all the time, but when it's
Mhm.
really needed, they can't access the muscle because they haven't used it, they haven't exercised it, they haven't done anything with it. I'm like you. I work out on the regular, and I can tell when I don't, or I can
Mhm.
also tell that this dexterity that I have that I wouldn't have if I didn't work out, and so that's available. When you talk about leadership and you talk about trying to have people who are working in an organization that you're leading, I don't believe that you lead people. Excuse me. I don't believe that you manage people. You lead them.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
people that you lead, do they give 100% every time? No, they don't. They can't. We can't operate at 100% all the time. But here's what leaders can do, and here's what this whole bit about exercising can help us, exercising our faith. That there'll be critical times in all of our businesses, in all of our walks of life, in which we need to give 100% because something has happened that we've got to go do it. If we don't exercise our faith, just like we don't exercise our muscles, when that time comes that we need to give 110%, we don't have the capacity to do it. And exercising our faith will give us the capacity to do that.
Exercising our faith will give us the capacity to give that 100% when it's necessary.
When it's necessary. Your 85, your 95% is pretty darn good most of the time.
As you're saying that, what occurred to me was that as a leader, I say that the first person I lead is myself.
Mm-hmm.
And in
Mm-hmm.
my world, the only person I lead is myself. I influence others.
Yes, I
And
love
what I
that.
remind myself of is if my faith is lacking, if I have doubt,
Mm-hmm.
I have no influence.
Mm-hmm.
Because and I know that when someone is talking to me and they're just giving me
Mm-hmm.
lip
Mm-hmm.
service,
Mm-hmm.
there's not the energy that comes with belief. There's not the energy that comes with, they say blind faith, right?
Mm-hmm.
Blind faith.
Mm-hmm.
I can feel it.
Oh, yeah.
And so one of the things I say is I have to build this muscle, because for me to influence, engage, and move people,
Hmm.
my faith must be strong.
Hmm.
My faith in what they and I cannot yet see
Hmm.
must be huge and strong and solid and bulletproof. And
Hmm.
so I got to build that muscle all the time. So then when it's required to be massive,
Hmm.
I can pull on it.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Uh, in my context, my faith comes from God. My faith
Mhm.
is in God and it comes from God. And so I have to do exercises every moment of my life to stay plugged into that source of faith.
Mhm.
Uh, Exercising in prayer. Prayer does not have to be this singular event that I get down on my knees at 12 o'clock at night or at 3 o'clock in the afternoon to pray. It could be throughout the day continuously. Pray without ceasing. My exercises in faith is that I need to stay educated about the Word of God. And
Mhm.
so that's why being in a Bible study or reading the Word or meditating is very important, because it gives you that credo, that baseline. And thirdly, exercising faith is about being with other believers, having conversations with them, fellowshipping with them. Uh, it's nice to be with other people who drunk the Kool-Aid and to see where their faith journey is going as well, because it's a journey. You get unplugged, you get replugged, you stop, you get injured, you got to rehab, all of those sorts of things. It's a journey.
Mhm. And as you're speaking, it reminds me of the need to believe in something bigger than me,
Hmm. Hmm.
bigger than man. And I want to highlight that because we have all had moments where man has let us down,
Yeah,
like over and over and over and over again. And so man is human
and will again.
and will again. So man is human. And so I know for myself that as I've gone on this entrepreneurial journey, what has really driven this home for me is I can be seeking an answer.
Hmm.
And I have not found a man or woman who can provide it to me.
Hmm.
Now, if my faith is in man alone, that means I'm going to stop.
Hmm. Hmm.
When my faith is bigger than me and I pull on that which is bigger than me.
Hmm.
So for me, it's God. For some people, some people will call universe, some people it's Allah, it's all these different things. I think that
Exactly.
the whole concept of, and some people, they know there's something, they don't have a name, but they know there's something
You know,
bigger,
there's something. Yeah, yeah.
bigger than them. And I think it's the ability to know that you are not alone in this, whatever you're doing. And so
Hmm.
when I say I step into possibility and I step out on faith, it is, I know I'm going to receive something.
Hmm. Hmm.
I know my name, that something's coming. And partly because my belief is that it is anything a man can conceive, he can achieve, that quote.
Hmm.
So I always remind myself, if I thought of this, that means there's a way. I just have to believe in the fact that it came to me.
Hmm.
Therefore, there's an answer.
Hmm.
And for me, that is enough. And then I trust in whatever gave me the idea.
Hmm.
Wherever I downloaded it from, it's going to give me the
I
rest
love
of
it.
the stuff,
Wherever I downloaded it from, yeah.
right? Um, and so I think there's just such an importance of, for me, it's always imagine the burden of being alone, is me,
Hmm.
right? And I can't pull from somewhere else. That to me is overwhelming. The buck stops right here all the time. Like when I run out of brilliance and whatever, um, I'm done. I think for me is I trust that something's going to be delivered to me that's going to activate what's in me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it is trusting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's a powerful conversation.
Ah, thank you. It always is. It's an honor and a pleasure to have these conversations with you.
Is there a question that you would like to ask, or that you're like, ooh, this is a question that's going to be like just to bring this to a whole nother level?
um, I think the more of a thought
Okay.
is that things get difficult. And we live in a society right now in which we are making things far more difficult than they need to be. Uh,
Mm,
because folks who are into negativity have platforms like social media to spread negativity and to spread divisiveness and to get people on a path that things are going to hell in a handbasket, and also a path of scarcity.
mhm.
The pie is big enough that Suzanne can have a big slice, and I can have a big slice, and all of our viewers can have a big slice, and there's enough pie left for everybody else to have a big slice or a bigger slice. That we don't live in a world of scarcity. And
Mm.
most of our fears come from this whole notion of scarcity, that if one group gets something, it's going to take away from me.
Yeah.
And so we've got to have faith that for us who our faith is in God, that God has created a universe that is so big that scarcity is not an issue.
It, I'm going to talk about money and wealth for a moment to
Yeah,
really kind of
absolutely. And there's
highlight.
nothing wrong with talking about money and wealth.
Well, I want to talk about it from the understanding of it. So when I used to have more of a scarcity mindset, not even knowing that I did, and I think many people do because and don't even know that they did,
Mm-hmm.
is that I went out to make money. And money in its sense is if you're making it, it feels like a limited resource. It feels
Mm-hmm.
like there's not enough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so because when you go out to make money, you're dependent on someone to give it to you,
Mm-hmm.
right? What I began to realize, Marben, was that creation is a key concept and wealth is created.
Right.
And
Exactly.
there's
Thank you. I'm
and
glad you're going there.
and there's a distinction between making money and creating wealth. And when
Mm-hmm.
I really began to get it is I began to look at how the nation has been built, all countries have been built. There were
Mm-hmm.
these people who created
Mm-hmm.
these things.
Mm-hmm.
And as they created, they put people to work and
Mm-hmm.
expansion happened.
Mm-hmm.
So what's really interesting is as long as you and I and everybody has the ability to be creative beings and
Mm-hmm.
create,
Mm-hmm.
there is abundance.
Right.
This is where the rubber hits the road and faith comes in. Do you have the faith required to create? So for me, when I was laying on that floor in my new apartment in tears, I had to call my mom, it was because I had been making money
Right.
for a very
Instead of
long
creating
time.
wealth.
And I had not been, and here was a moment where I had to trust and have faith in my ability to create.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I realize is as I've gone on this entrepreneurial journey, as I put my ideas and my creations into the marketplace, expansion happens
Mm-hmm.
through people going, "Oh, I want that. Oh, I want to
Mm-hmm.
learn that. Tell me
Mm-hmm.
more about that." So in
Yeah.
many ways, as I create, I generate.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as I generate, I create possibility for other people. But I also am able to provide and put other people to work
Mhm.
as they join me in my journey of creation.
Mhm.
Really, what we're talking about is no, it's not scarcity. We live in a truly abundant world if we're willing to step into what we're here for, which
Mhm.
is creation.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. We're here for creation.
So
I love that.
that's why I asked you if you
That's great.
wanted it. You had anything to add?
Well, thanks. Let's be about creation and let's not be about scarcity.
Yeah, yeah, that is huge.
Let's live a life of abundance.
That is huge. Oh my goodness. I gotta say, for those of you who are, just part of the conversation, you joined it late, I have been sitting down with Pastor Marben Bland, and we have just been having a fantastic conversation. I was so looking forward to this conversation because we have conversations every few months, I would say.
Mhm.
And every time we do, I get off the phone and I'm like, damn, that was so good. And I feel expanded. So I wanna thank you for just giving us the opportunity to be in co-creation with you,
Sure.
to have this very enlightening conversation, and for your contribution.
Thank you. Thank you. And Suzanne, thank you for what you do. You truly are a transformational figure, and that you are creating uh, generations of people who are going to go out and change the world as you have already.
Oh, thank you so much. So, one thing, as you said yes to the first conversation, I was like, "Ooh, I have more conversations we're gonna have." So, are you willing to come back and sit down with us again?
Suzanne, you know I cannot say no to you. Because I come from these conversations more full and more ready to tackle the things of the world because of the richness of what you say and the richness of what we create together when we are having conversations. So I am pleased that the things that we've talked about in private are now spilling out to the greater world, and that they're possible for other people to hear. So thank you so much, and
You're so welcome.
I look forward to other opportunities. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much. And so, for those who are meeting you for the first time, where can they connect with you? Where can they get a hold of you?
Sure. So I'll just go to my website, marbenbland.com. That's marbenbland.com. I'll just put that in the show notes. And you can reach out to me there. You'll see blogs and sermons and podcasts and stuff like that. And also you'll see some announcements about the new book that we're publishing, My Faith Looks Up to Thee, the post-pandemic devotions that were written. And all of those devotions are both audio and also written devotions that are available to you in the book. So we'll be launching that book very shortly.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. So, I want to leave everybody with the thought of the week, and it is faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. And that is by Martin Luther King Jr., of course. And so, as you go through the week, I'm going to invite you to step out on faith even when you can't see the full staircase, and trust and believe that your first step will inform your next step. So with that, Marben Bland, thank you so much for sitting down with us. Thank you for your contribution. And as we close, please know you are brilliant. Know you are oh so very special. And we do this work because the world is waiting. The world is waiting for your unique gifts. Blessings, and we will talk to you next week.